Give me a thumbs up. All right, good evening and welcome to the Bethel Local Schools Board of Education special meeting in regards to the Facilities Committee. The date is Monday, April 18th, 2022, and we will call to order at 6:03 p.m. Mr. Elam, will you please call the roll?
Rick Gilbert. Justin Ferks.
Present.
Tina Hageman.
Present.
Caleb Runkle. Jessica Franz.
Here.
Danny Elam here. Lori Sebastian.
Here.
Julie Reese. It's a full slate.
Thank you. Number 3, additions to the agenda if needed. Do we have any additions to the agenda that need to be added?
I think we might want to talk about the partition quote.
Okay. Can add that to either A5 or letter C and move down C to D, however you want to do it. Any suggestions? Or does it not matter?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Well, it's down, so we'll get to it here eventually. Any other additions? Okay, communications, meetings, and announcements. Anyone have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Number 5, items for discussion, subcommittee reports. Letter A, reports and status update. To provide a K through 5 building project update, we had our core team meeting today with representatives from Peterson Construction and also Garmin Miller. Met with our board committee members and then also key personnel that are involved in the project as well from the district. As far as the K5 building project update, concrete foundations were finished last week and the masonry foundations continue. Obviously with the significant amount of rain that we've had recently, masonry work, it makes it a little bit more difficult with the rain. They seem to be the first ones off site whenever rainfall hits, which makes sense. If you've been out to the site or been past the site recently, you'll notice that scaffolding has gone up and masonry bearing around the gymnasium box continues. So that's the vertical structure that you'll see out there. That's where the elementary gymnasium will be housed. Underground plumbing work continues. Electrical underground work is beginning this week. Slab preparation is ongoing with the first pour scheduled for later this week, weather depending. They also mentioned in the meeting that they fully anticipated by the end of this week that all of the concrete foundation work will be completed as well, which is great. I mean, as far as the footers. The dirt work continues as weather allows. That also includes the continued work on the retention pond, and that Peterson indicated that they hope to start on the football field grading very soon as well. Once again, that's dependent upon the weather and we can get a spell of dry weather. Overall, one of the questions that was asked of them towards the end of the meeting was, with the significant challenges that we've experienced with weather this spring, how did they feel that was doing with what potential impact that it had on the scheduling as far as staying on track? And they felt like they still are making great progress. When they do have some rainfall, they just continue to work on other items that need to be addressed, whether it be the plumbing or getting ready to start for electrical work, etc. So they felt very good about remaining on schedule despite the wet spring that we've been experiencing. So that's a brief K5 project update. Number 2 is First off, any questions on the K-5 update at all from anyone? Okay. Number 2 is an athletic stadium update. As of right now, the athletic department, school district, and athletic boosters have collected roughly $635,000 in corporate sponsorships and donations. So that's kind of where we're at right now. The athletic boosters are still in the process of securing their loan for the additional funds that would potentially allow them to pay for the athletic turf, scoreboard, and potentially additional bleachers. They hope to have an answer here within the month of where they're at with that loan, and continue to have discussions with several bank entities as well. Any questions on the athletic stadium update?
Well, I'm a little concerned just because at some point we have to say this is the money we've raised and move forward. We do have quotes for the bleachers and quotes for the turf, and those are only good for a certain length of time. So I don't know if we want to move forward with things or not, but at some level waiting is going to mean the price goes up. And I don't know if Tina has information on the numbers on any of that for us yet, where that stands. Okay. So it did cause me concern today because, I mean, let's say athletic boosters can raise $600,000.
She didn't turn it on. Is your
That
microphone on?
that means something has to give or money has to shift from somewhere else in the budget. So I just want to be open and transparent. That's where things are. And like I said, I think at some point soon, we need to make a decision and move forward.
I'll have some discussions with Mr. Byrd and Mr. Smith tomorrow, and we'll try to set a hard deadline as far as working with Maumee Bay, which is the turf company, Southern Athletic Company, which is the bleacher company, on kind of a hard date as far as when we need to make some decisions moving forward. But I would agree with that as well. Any other questions in regards to athletic stadium update?
And I do want to be very clear, I am very thankful for the role Athletic Boosters has taken, and I mean, that they've raised over $500,000 is incredible to me. So please do not think that this is in any way being critical of them. It's just, you know, we were hopeful we could get $1 million raised. Maybe we still can, I don't know. But there's still need. If you'd like to donate, please talk to the athletic director or Todd Byrd, president of the Athletic Boosters. There's need out there.
Okay. Number 3, traffic study update. The traffic study for the potential work, or I shouldn't say potential, the future work that will be done on 201 north of our current site, which will be located just right off of 201 in Agenbrod with the new building site. That was submitted to ODOT for review on December 21st. They are still waiting on comments from the Ohio Department of Education, or Ohio Department of Education, Ohio Department of Transportation in regards to that road widening project. Also looking for design comments on implementing a right-hand turn lane coming from the north towards the building site, so as if you're heading south on 201 as well. Also had some recent meetings with Pioneer and also AES as far as the layout of that road widening project and also the turn lane. We have 4 to 5 power poles that are located on 201 that will need to be relocated. AES and also Pioneer have indicated that it takes roughly 6 weeks for design process with what that removal and replacement will look like. In addition, it takes roughly 6 weeks for a potential quote to come to us as far as the anticipated cost to remove those poles and move them and relocate them. So it's kind of in a holding pattern right now as far as waiting on comments from ODOT, and then AES and Pioneer can work with the district and also with Bruns and Peterson as far as what the layout will look at after they receive the comments, and then also kind of how much it'll cost based on what their layout of that future road will look like as well. Any questions or comments on the traffic study? I guess I hit 3 and 4 kind of all in one. Sure. 4 or 5. Mm-mm. No, all those along that line from the driveway all the way to Agenbrod. Because they're widening the road.
If we get questions from the audience, can you please repeat them, because nobody online will be able to hear the questions.
Okay, yeah, the question was, why does the district have to relocate 4 or 5 power poles? There's one power pole that's located directly in where our entrance drive will be. I think there's another 3 or 4, maybe 5, I don't know, I'd have to count the number, that go from the service drive north to Agenbrod. With the widening of 201, those poles will have to be removed and relocated, probably potentially further back, I would assume. So I'll have to go out there in the next day or so and count how many there is. And then once we receive comments from ODOT, AES can take those comments, provide a layout, and then also based on that layout, give us a potential cost of how much it'll be to do that work.
Julie has another, yeah.
Is there any chance that AES put those in the right of way and it would be their responsibility to move them? Because they usually have to come back, so that if the road does get widened, they don't have to be moved.
So the question was, does any responsibility fall on the company? I would have to check into that. Well, we've had those conversations. I'd have to check in on the definite response, but I thought it had to do with easements, I believe, and so therefore it's the owner's responsibility. Does that sound correct? Yep.
And from what they said in the meetings, that will be an unbudgeted project expense, so that will come out of contingency, whatever it costs to move. We don't know pricing yet, but that, at least with the pole in the center of the driveway, that's going to be on us. So I would assume all the other ones are too, but Justin can clarify.
That is correct.
Yeah.
The two options you would have would be either the contingency or general fund, whatever the Board of Education would prefer to do based on recommendations from treasurer and the finances of the district.
Now, the good news is our contingency did go up 60,000 because Tina was able to allocate some of the
Cafeteria
food service
tables.
funds
Yeah.
for the cafeteria tables, so we were able to pull that out of the general budget, and then she expensed that from the cafeteria fund. So we were able to get some additional contingency back. And remember, it's I don't want to say it's a shell game, but any of that contingency money will be used for finishing the K-5 building or the athletic complex. I mean, we aren't going to have surplus funds at the end.
Yeah, and just as an update to everyone as well, throughout the last couple of meetings, Peterson's done a good job of updating us and reminding us that the district is, as most people would have expected, experienced some of the bedrock issues that are out on that site. And so they had a pot of money that was available for rock removal, and they are close or right at using those funds. So there could be some potential money that needs to be used from the contingency if they continue to experience rock with the stadium project, or they also talked about using some of the funds that were available in the unsuitable soils category as well. So just depends, kind of in a holding pattern right now with the rainfall and not necessarily starting on the stadium portion of the project of what they'll encounter out on that portion of the land when they continue to do work infrastructure-wise underground with that project as well. So once we get those updates, we'll make sure we share it with the group also. So just keep that one on your radar.
One other question now. Does that mean
we didn't add any money to the budget. They just moved it out of the GMP 1.2 that we already approved. We're going to get a change order that's a negative amount to reduce that. And so some of that is the $71,000 for the cafeteria tables and their management fees for Peterson and all that. So we'll reduce that out of the existing contract that's in place. So that frees up money to move into the contingency.
Any questions on traffic study update or power pole relocation update? Okay, with that being said, we will move to letter B. At our work session, we had a couple of neighbors, residents visit us and communicate some issues they've had with water across, or I should say, water underneath 201, and then obviously some issues in their front yard or driveway / backyard. And so we were visited by Mr. Kemper and also Mr. Zimmerman, and I thought it was appropriate to put it on the Facilities Committee agenda for some input from folks on next steps. I do know that they've had several conversations and received several emails previously dating back to February from not only Miami County engineers, but also Choice One Engineering, which I know Mr. Andy Earhart, Township Administrator, was CC'd on. And then they've also had some site walkthroughs with Brad Bidwell from Site Manager from Peterson, and then also have met, I think, Mr. Elam as a board rep did a site visit as well. And so kind of looking for some guidance for next steps. I do know it was kind of brought up at our facilities meeting today, and one of the potential recommendations that was mentioned was if we could schedule a potential meeting with Mr. Kemper and also Mr. Zimmerman and meet with maybe a member or two of the school board as a rep and some reps from Peterson Construction. We could also invite the township, Mr. Earhart, maybe potentially Mr. Black, because he was the one that did some of the work on site, and he's also a trustee. They've also recommended that maybe we invite some of the county engineers that have provided email guidance to those folks, and also representatives from Choice One Engineering as well, and kind of do just a roundtable discussion where all parties get together as one and kind of share each side and try to figure out a plan moving forward with that. But I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that as far as the suggested idea. And I'm open to any suggestions that you guys have.
That sounds like a great thought to me. In fact, it was suggested. Previously in one of my other meetings. I think our neighbors across the street, our township residents, have been very reasonable so far, and not with no threats and so anything like that. But getting everyone together and trying to come up with a reasonable solution, I think, is what everyone wants and what everyone deserves.
And just to be transparent with everyone, throughout those email dialogues dating back to February, the county engineers and also township has indicated that this is an issue between the residents and the school district. And so I'll invite them, but I don't know if they'll participate in the meeting. Because if you read those emails, they clearly indicated that it's a civil matter. And so, like some other things, I just want to be upfront with people. We'll invite them, but I don't know if they'll participate or not. But at least the school district, the township maybe, and the residents in Peterson and Choice One can get together and have a meeting.
Yes. I'm quite familiar with inviting people to meetings and they don't want to show up. So I totally agree with you, and even that limited meeting, I think, would be a nice gesture. I I think our neighbors simply want to see some sort of movement and some sort of, and caring from everyone that what's happening to them and their property. I think that's all that everybody is looking for.
Well, I also think there's some differing opinions. I don't know, Caleb and Rick, just to kind of fill you in, and Justin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the back drainage was cleaned out of trees and debris, so water flow happened quicker, and as a result,
I saw that.
the residents are claiming that we caused issues with their ditches. Can you tell me the sizes of the sewer, Justin?
Yeah, the culvert that runs underneath 201, I believe was measured at right around 56 inches. And the two pipes that go underneath the driveway directly across the street on 201, I think each of those are 24 inches, but they're not continuous. And so I think there's some discrepancy there as far as reducing the water flow from pipe to pipe. And then there's even a further reduction from the driveway on across the street to the backyard as well, with another pipe that was placed in it. So that information was communicated to those folks from the county engineers back in February. And so there is some different varied information that's out there from engineers to residents. But as Mr. Elam indicated, I think at the least we need to get with them, have a healthy dialogue and conversation, and see what we can do as far as next steps, which I think is what we all want, right?
Yes.
We do. I just, there was never any admission by Mr. Firks or by Peterson that we had made a mistake, and one of the residents has mentioned that both of them said that, so I think that needs cleared up for the record. I mean, we did clear a ditch out. The same amount of water, the same acreage is being drained as before. If a private resident clears their ditch out, the private resident isn't expected to correct a resident's ditch across the street. I'm just concerned about precedent here, okay? So we need to really think about what we're doing.
I understand. I think we also need to be good neighbors, and perhaps that there needs to be movement on both sides.
So I guess asking you folks as a facilities committee / board committee, just my opinion only, and if your opinion varies, I'm okay with it. Do we feel a need to have 3 people on the board serve and it be a board meeting, or can we have just 1 or 2 board members / facility committee members serve on that, and we can provide updates?
I don't feel like we need to have 3
Okay.
at all.
Anybody else have any opinions on that?
I'm okay with just having a couple board members and
Okay.
doing it that way.
We have any volunteers?
I will.
All right. Anyone else?
I've already talked to Mr. Zimmerman a couple times as well.
Are you volunteering yourself?
I can, yes.
Okay. All right. So what I can do is send an email that includes Mr. Elam, Mrs. Sebastian, myself, and I will also include, do we need to have any of the other facility members involved, or do you feel that the 2 board members represent the facilities committee enough?
Caleb or Rick, or either of you, I mean, Julie, you could be included as well, but do either of you have subject level knowledge in drainage?
I don't want to do it because it's better that Dawn gets invited. We can't have 2 of us.
Understand.
That's-
For some reason, we can't have 3 of us.
Okay.
That's a good thought.
All right.
I do have some knowledge though about the civil suit if you want to hear a little bit. I don't know if I'm talking loud enough or get it picked up, but just because it's the same land saying that in general, I'm not saying I talked to them, nothing to do with them. I only know this because my neighbor started changing their yard, and it's on the low spot where it floods some things. So what I was told was they can change it and then you sue it if you get flooded. So it's not just that it's the same land, because the water runs off differently once you start grading it differently and, moving things around. As they point out, maybe taking some of the shrubbery down. So just be careful with what you tell them.
And there were changes many years ago to the ditch, so I don't know exactly what was done like 40 years ago, and I'm not sure that was necessarily in compliance. And I mean, there's been admission that it didn't drain well before. So how much we caused versus how, I mean, who knows? We can't measure what happened in the past because the past is over, but there were issues in the past, and we've had, whether we like it or not, an exceptionally wet spring.
It has been, yeah.
One of the Peterson reps even said in the meeting 75 had flooded in an area south of Tip City, and we know how over-designed the interstates tend to be. So, again, I'm not a civil engineer, so I can't speak to whether, all those issues, but I do know we've had an unusual amount of water this spring, and sometimes in very quick succession.
Right, and one other thing I just wanted to say was when Danny said maybe both sides need to change something. So here's another thing with, he's got a new house, not Mr. Zimmerman.
Mr. Kemper.
So because it didn't flood in the past, if you start building on that, there could have been tiles under it, because it's a lot of that is farmland.
Mm-hmm.
So you start disturbing those things, a lot of times builders don't care, they just cut through the tiles, and you put your house in the middle, now the tile's in, and it floods your house. So it could be, not saying it is, just saying it could be that you're right, that maybe both sides need to kind of figure out what's
Yeah.
causing it.
Well, I think the county's been pretty clear the drainage on the other side isn't big enough. So I don't know how we I'm just telling you moving forward, I'm not sure how you compromise that.
Okay.
You're going from, I don't want to get into that here, but you're going from a very large drainage pipe to a very small one.
Okay, so we will plan on scheduling a meeting, and I will send out an email to Mr. Kemper and Mr. Zimmerman, and it will include Mr. Elam, Mrs. Sebastian, Mr. Don Black, and then I will also invite representatives from Peterson, Choice One Engineering, and then also the county engineers. Andy as well, I'm sorry. Is he allowed to be at a meeting? Is he count as two? Just want to make sure. Okay, so I'll have Andy on there as well. Yeah, I'm going to have myself in the meeting also. Yep.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Burks.
I guess I don't know, when you include 7 or 8 people, I guess I'll just send out a handful of dates and times to see what works best for everyone. I just don't know what everybody's schedule is going to be. So we'll do our best, and we'll probably, if we can hold it here in maybe the high school conference room or something like that. Any other questions on next steps with neighbors?
I would just like to thank Peterson and Mr. Bird and Mr. Forks for all their work. I know they spent a lot of time on this outside and trying to get resolution. And I also want to thank Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Kemper for their patience. And hopefully, moving forward, we can reach some kind of compromise.
Yep. Very well said. Any other items that anyone would like to speak about in regards to facility updates? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, we have the partition quote. Forgot about that one. Provided an email to the Board of Education in regards to some of the items that we have discussed previously in regards to modifying some of the bathrooms in the middle school and high school with the floor to ceiling partitions. Some of the numbers that Mr. Bird, our maintenance supervisor, has been able to come up with, not knowing how much the cost would be, have been shared, and the treasurer has indicated, which she is correct, with that dollar amount, we're probably going to have to open it up for would it be an RFQ, Tina?
We have to open it up for bidding, so it would be a request for bids,
Yeah.
because it exceeds the $50,000 requirement,
Yeah.
and it's a,
Yeah, so the initial quote that we received did not count labor. It was just for materials and to modify all of the restrooms in the high school and middle school building, which is just where we started out at, was right around $70,000, not counting labor. So kind of looking for some thoughts from the facilities committee and what you would like to see next. And I had no idea what to expect going in. That's why I didn't even anticipate having to go out to bid, because I didn't know what the materials would cost. And if the district would so choose to go that route, it's potential work that could be done over the summer.
Well, I mean, I think it's something that the board's gonna have to consider whether they want to do in the first place. I mean, when you have, and what the design is, like, there's a lot of questions, we need more information there too, because clearly if the door itself is also all the way to the floor, you can't tell how many students are in there, and that's a safety concern all itself. So I think we just need more information about what exactly these would look like, and we have to make some safety calls there.
It would
Before we move
also,
forward.
and I can get you guys a detailed drawing or layout. It also includes in some of our older restrooms in the middle school, there's not necessarily in the men's restroom a small little divider between the urinals as well, which are pretty common now, but they just weren't put in when that restroom was built 50 years ago. So it also includes those kind of things in the restrooms as well.
So I think we get additional information first
Okay.
before but I think obviously the RFQ would be necessary at some point if we decide to go that route.
Okay.
But I just think the board needs information about what exactly we're talking about before we can talk about it.
Okay.
Maybe?
I'll have Todd reach out to the company and have him try to get some more defined scope of work, drawings, et cetera, share that with you folks, and then you guys can make a decision on what you want to do next with it.
Yeah, or what the options are, I guess, maybe along those lines. Like, I'm not trying to shut it down. I just want to know what we're looking at before, and what our options are before you can't send an RFQ unless you know what we're RFQing,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
understood. I don't, when we say floor to ceiling, I don't think it necessarily goes all the way to the ceiling tile. I think it's more extended to the point where I would have to get an exact length. I don't think it's going to be completely boxed in. It's going to essentially be what you have and extended in both directions, lower and higher, but it's not going to be a complete box. I have no idea how much that would cost to do that.
Any thoughts, Natalie, Jessica, Danny?
Getting some pictures and drawings or something like that would be helpful.
Yeah,
I think.
the gentleman, they did site visits and they kind of were just rough drafting things on sketch paper, and then, I can
Yeah.
have them put some, like a CAD drawing together or something.
But
Thank you. If you-
$70,000 is a lot of money.
Sorry, Danny.
No problem, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And that would, like I said, I think it's 10 restrooms that we counted in the middle school and high school. I say that, and it's going to be 11 or 9, so don't hold me to it. It's close to 10, I think.
Right.
Thank you. I was just going to add, I know it takes time and effort to go out and work those, so
Yeah,
appreciate that.
that's no
I
problem. Like
think-
I said, it's Mr. Bird's done a lot of the legwork on it, so
Oh.
I'll make sure I share those thoughts with him. He's having a lot of the conversations. That's kind of his scope of work as maintenance supervisor. But to be upfront, a lot of people are busy right now, and like a lot of other places, they're struggling to get materials, and they only hold the price for so many days. I think
Sure.
that price was, I
Yeah.
think they held it for 30 days. So,
Absolutely.
if you would go out to RFP, if you decide to do that, I mean, just to be upfront, that price might change.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
But I think everybody kind of understands that with the way things are right now.
But thank you. I think that's a great step. Again, I appreciate the time and effort.
Yep.
Because I do know it takes time, but I think it's a good thing as best we can to put the options together.
Sure.
So
Sure.
at least we have something to discuss.
Yeah,
further.
I'll talk with him tomorrow and see kind of what they think the turnaround would be with some more specified information.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions in regards to bathroom partitions? I can certainly ask about that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll ask. Yeah, I can certainly ask. I'll be honest, I don't know much about this kind of stuff, so I would have to ask. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I'm assuming that we're safe to move to hearing of the public. Do we have a hearing of the public? Yeah, last I'd heard Garmin Miller's working on it. I'll follow up with them to see where they're at with it. You're welcome. Okay. It's fine. Okay, letter, I guess it would now be E. Our next meeting date and time is scheduled for May 9th, 2022 at 6 o'clock p.m. With that being said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Mr. Elam? Can I get a second? Mrs. Reese? Mr. Elam, can you please call the roll?
Rick Gilbert. Justin Ferks.
Yes.
Tina Hageman.
Yes.
Mr. Runkle. Mrs. France.
Yes.
Danny Elam, yes. Mrs. Sebastian.
Yes.
Mrs. Reese.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 6:41 p.m. Thank you for being with us this evening, and we will rejoin you for our regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting at 7 p.m. Have a good evening.